All set up? Okay, so we're just going to start with a first example. We've got the formula P equals 2L plus 2W. Does anybody know what that formula is for? For the perimeter of a rectangle. Very good. And you are being asked to solve for the variable W. So I need to get W all by itself. So I've got a W term here. How do I move this non-W term to the other side?
Subtract it.
Subtract it. Good. So I'm going to subtract 2L from both sides, which gets me P minus 2L is equal to 2W. What's our last thing to do to get rid of the 2 in front? Divide by 2, divide by 2. We can simplify this further. I can separate this in, oh my goodness, that breeze feels so good. You guys feel that? No? Oh, maybe you all need to stand up and feel the path of it. So if we separate this into 2 separate fractions, 1p cut in half would just be half a p. Bring down your minus sign. 2 L's divided by 2 would be how many L's left over? 1 L, so I would have 1 L left over, is equal to W. Voila. We're not going to write this in set notation because we don't have a set of numbers as our solution. We're just rewriting a formula in a different form. Okay? So that's pretty much what you're going to be doing for your homework. So now let's re-look at this problem in a little bit different of a way. So let's rewrite it as P equals 2 parentheses L plus W. And again, we're going to solve for W. If you distribute this, where would it take us back to? The same problem we just had, right? So what is it called? I'm just going to write this above. Bless you. You do not need to write this. Just watch. If I do distribute that above it, what's it called when you take a common factor outside of the parentheses? I just said the word. It starts with an F, ends in an R. Well, factoring, right? When you factor something out, right? So the greatest common factor of 2L and 2W is 2. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because it can make life a little bit easier. So if I divide out this 2 in front of my parentheses right away, that gets me to my half a P is equal to L plus W. So now the only thing I have to move over to the other side is the L, right? So it'd be P over 2 minus L is equal to W, which is the same exact answer that we just had. A little bit less manipulation. Okay? So a lot of these problems you may want to take notice if you have common factors that you can factor out. Try to do that. All right, so let's do one that's really long with a 2 as a common factor. Is everybody ready? All right, so next one is A equals 2HW plus 2LW plus 2LH. And we're solving for L. Right now I've got 1, 2, 3 terms. They all do not have an L in there, but they all do have a 2, right? So I could factor out a 2 from everything, which would get me 2 parentheses HW plus LW plus LH equals A. So then what do we do next? Divide out the 2. So that gets me A over 2 is equal to HW plus LW plus LH. So again, remember we're solving for L. Out of these 3 terms, how many of them have an L there? 2 of them. So let's move the third one that doesn't over to the left, which would be the HW by doing what operation? Subtracting. Good. So A divided by 2 minus HW is equal to LW plus LH. Now what can I factor out? Greatest common factor of these two terms would be an L. So take out an L, which leaves me with W plus H. I'm going to be lazy. I'm not going to rewrite that left side, which means I would divide by what to get L by itself? WH. All right, so for those in the back of the room, I'll scoot up here so you guys can see. So now this is what we're going to get. We're going to get that A divided by 2 minus HW all over W plus H is equal to L. That can be simplified to look a lot nicer. Just like we broke up the last fraction, we can do the same thing here. Now, the trick with having a fraction being divided by something again, what I just remember is this denominator is going to get attached to that denominator. And the reason why, if you think about it, if we had 1/3 divided by 6, I rewrite that as 1/3 divided by 6. That's the same as 1/3 times 1 over 6, right? So you just multiply the 6 and the 3 together to get 18. Right? Do you see that in that simplicity of that form? So I'm going to take 2 and multiply it by WH. So I get A all over 2 times W plus H minus, this doesn't have a denominator, so it's just going to be HW over W plus H equals L. That's a tricky one. Don't expect anything harder than that. Okay? So, given a formula, solve for a variable. I think is problems 1 through 15 or 14, I don't know exactly what it is. The last 4 are literal equations, and they're going to look something like this. Is everybody good? This will be our last example. I'm going to skip some. Go to this one. So 5G minus 4 equals 6H minus FG, and we're solving for G. So I've got 2 terms on the left, 2 terms on the right, 4 terms in total. How many of them have G's in them? 2 of them. So I want to get all the G terms to the same side. Would it make sense to move all G terms to the left or all G terms to the right?
Left.
To left. Why would that make the most sense? Because we're just adding, and then I'm going to deal with positives as opposed to negatives. If you love negatives, go for it. So I'm going to add my FG over. Is everybody okay with me adding the 4 over at the same time?
Yeah.
I do a plus 4 plus 4. Is that going to throw anybody off into a loop? Yes? No? We're okay? All right, so that gives me 5G plus FG equals 6H plus 4. Common factor of these 2 terms would be G. Good. So factor it out, which leaves me with 5 plus F equals 6H plus 4. And my last move is going to be to divide by 5 plus F. 5 by 5 plus F. I can't simplify that any further, so that's just going to be your answer. So G equals 6H plus 4 over 5 plus F. Okay. Questions? Think you'll be able to handle that? All right. I am done for the day.